We're going to take our first break. When we come back, we'll have Mr. X. You listen to Sanity Check, and that number here is 888-577-4487 if you want to join in the conversation. We'll be right back.
Sanity Check with Tea Party Mike, Libertarian Lou, Saturday mornings, 94.3 FM The Talker.
This came, by the way, from a caller to my radio show, Jason from Washington, D.C. He's an insider. He's connected inside Washington, and that's the secret buzz going on inside the Beltway. Jason from Washington, D.C. Jason. He's an insider. He's connected inside Washington.
And we're back. 94.3 FM The Talker. This is Sanity Check. Libertarian Lou, Tea Party Mike. But in studio today we have Betsy Summers, Frank Sork. Good morning, Mr. X.
Good morning.
Listen, I think Frank Sork is one. Well, he has a question for you right off the bat.
I do. Listening to that Fox News intro that we played coming back from break, I have a question for you, Mr. X. You know where we can get a hold of this Jason?
Can we play that clip? Just so that we lay everything out, let's play what was played on Fox yesterday and certainly reported in Newsmax, and I saw Huffington Post and all these other things. Let's fill everybody in exactly what we're talking about, X, and then you could get on and you could comment.
Listen, Stuart, we still talk about Benghazi, the scandal there. We still talk about the IRS scandal. But the scandal that we forget about was the Obama administration going after the media, tapping the Associated Press, going after our colleague James Rosen, and all of that. And that thing has been swept under the rug. Nobody's talking about that scandal anymore. The media is not talking about the scandal anymore. And yet Jill Abramson, back earlier this year, she said the Obama years are a benchmark for a new level of secrecy and control. She said sources who want to come forward with stories they feel are important are scared to death they're going to be prosecuted. And that, to me, is what happened. She went over the line. Now,
she went right after the White House on the issue of secrecy from the media.
The editor of the New York Times. And so if you want control over all of that, you don't want the New York Times. I mean, they're the newspaper of record for your base. If you're the Obama administration, you don't want them saying, listen, this group over here is a bad apple group. That's exactly what she said. And I think they waited a few months. This came, by the way, from a caller to my radio show, Jason from Washington, D.C. He's an insider. He's connected inside Washington. And that's the secret buzz going on inside the Beltway.
Somebody in the administration had a word with the publisher at the New York Times and said, look, Jill Abramson, we can't have this.
Right.
We can't have the New York Times.
You've got to get rid of her.
You've got to get rid of her. And she waited a couple of months. You realize...
Because there's no other answer here. Nothing else makes sense. All of a sudden, it was a surprise. She just all of a sudden up and poof, she was gone. And the other thing about this is this thing about the pay is so bogus. It's like she got her job from the Help Wanted ads, where they say, we have a job pays $48,000 a year. No, you negotiate your salary.
But it does sound a little conspiratorial, doesn't it? It could be interpreted as a conspiracy theory, couldn't it?
Very much so, but with legitimacy, in my opinion.
Good stuff, Tom. It's original. Okay, so Jason in D.C. called your radio show with the idea. You picked it up very well.
Thank you. This came, by the way, from a caller to my radio show, Jason from Washington, D.C. He's an insider. He's connected inside Washington, and that's the secret buzz going on inside the Beltway. Jason from Washington, D.C. Jason. He's an insider. He's connected inside Washington.
So, Mr. X, you pointed out the elephant in the room this past week. That was the Tom Sullivan show, which made it to the Stuart Varney Fox Business show, which has made it now all over the internet. So fill us in. Let us know what you're thinking.
Again, this idea that the executive editor of the New York Times is being fired because of financial reasons. Just, it doesn't sit right. I mean, obviously, a person negotiated their salary. they have an agreement in place. But, if you need to put out a cover story for getting rid of somebody, make it because she's maybe she's a woman. Maybe they're not paying her enough. A war on women, let's try to twist that around. But, the fact of the matter is, when you sit back and you look at what's been going on at the Times, they're supposed to be, the truth seekers, the paper of record, and even they, which have been water carriers for the administration on so many issues, are suddenly running into problems because to even cover regular news, they realize how secretive the White House has been. So the interesting thing that this goes back to is back in January, Jill Abramson gave a interview with, of all places, Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera America asked her, about what was going on with the administration. And, I'm paraphrasing her quote, but it's something to the effect of, "This is the most secretive administration or White House I have ever dealt with in my 22-plus years of reporting." Now, you have to take a step back and realize, look, if this was Fox News coming out with this comment, it's one thing. But you have to understand the base supporters of the New York Times are typically a lot of this leftist progressive type characters that this is sacrilege. This is like the Pope coming out and saying, Jesus was married or something like that. I mean, this puts a shock to the entire system here. So, you can't fire her the next day. Okay, but you have to probably wait a bit of time and get rid of her and put in an editor who might be more favorable in terms of talking about the administration and what they're doing, because even the journalists within the system itself are realizing that they're actually, A, being threatened with losing their jobs, possibly being charged with treason, depending on what stories they write about. And the other part being, when you step back and look at what has happened to media itself, the White House has decided that it's going to just give certain people access and close other people off. So you might be the New York Times Washington correspondent for the White House. You might never get an interview with Obama because of stuff that your executive editor had said.
So that's exactly what we have been talking about here with the Independent Gazette, and we've made a decision, X, as you know, and certainly Betsy, and we got John DiLiberto and Frank Sorek here. We don't care if you don't want to interview with us. If you don't interview with us, that's part of the story. And I think that's what some of these other folks should be doing on the major news. Say, listen, the guy just don't want to talk to us but we think this is what he would say if he actually told us the truth. So what we're saying here at the Gazette, and certainly on Sanity Check Radio, you know what? If you don't want to come on, no problem. We'll fill it in for you. Go ahead, Frank.
Well, far too often you hear people saying, well, that was taken out of context, or you're relying only on part of the truth. Well, if you don't want to interview with us, that's the only choice we have, is to print the truth as we find it. So if we find documents that say one thing and you're not going to explain those documents or the decisions leading up to it, what choice do we have but to publish what we find?
Yeah,
it's the problem with journalism today, unfortunately, is that corporate media and political media, i.e., public relations advisors, have decided that they're going to control any story that comes out. So this is where you have that entire, wording that you've never heard before. I mean, up until about 15 years ago, you never heard the word talking points before. What is a talking point? A talking point is a story comes out, your side of the story needs to get their hands around it. So they send out a fax or a paper or an email to all of their minions that whatever you do, just keep talking about these three reasons for whatever, as the explanation. And just keep saying it over and over and over again. That's how you can have multiple sources, multiple interviews with different people, and everything they say is exactly the same. You're like, wait a minute, the person looks the same, but they're saying the same thing as the guy on the other channel and the person on the other channel and the channel after that. This is a coordinated effort because you cannot have anybody break ranks with what the official storyline is.
I was listening to an interview with Greenwald this week, and certainly he has come out and he said, the press needs to be adversarial to politicians. That's what the role should be. We shouldn't be there to hold their hands or we have to ask the tough questions. And somewhere along the way, I believe, and I think everybody within our group here certainly felt that somewhere along the way that has went off the tracks, that somehow you're supposed to just, to get the interview, to ask the puff questions, that, that's what journalism should be. And we've turned that around, and we're going to continue to turn that around.
There was, I think it was back maybe in January, I actually saw a TV show, I think it was on CNN. A woman reporter, did a thing on Benghazi. Didn't say one nasty word about Hillary Clinton, but within 2 weeks, she was fired.
Betsy, you're bringing something up about Hillary Clinton, and you just mentioned it a little while ago, the real war on women. And, we had this Boko Haram stuff going on, the Sharia law, Saudi Arabia, Betsy, you're not allowed, women are not allowed to drive. They have to stay covered up. Where has Hillary been? You want to know the real war on women? Where has Hillary been on the war on women around the world, X or Betsy, whoever wants to jump in on this? I mean, this Sharia stuff, there's the war on women.
She tweeted, Lou.
Oh, yeah, she tweeted. Yeah. Thank you. She tweeted. Oh, my God.
Posted a photo on Pinterest, did she?
Right. Is this it? Is this what we're gonna talk about? You hear about Romney wants to cut